Hello and a very warm welcome to this special video. This video is different. This is a deep dive. It's for all of you who are tired of superficial explanations. For everyone who suffers from symptoms like chronic neck tension headaches, unexplained tinnitus, sudden dizziness, jaw clenching or tingling in your fingers, and wants to finally, and I really mean finally, understand the deeper common cause behind it all. Today, we are going on a journey through anatomy, neurology, biochemistry, and even through ancient wisdom. I'm going to show you that your symptoms are not a coincidence, and they are not isolated problems. They are the logical, predictable endpoints of a causal chain that begins in a place most people completely overlook: breathing. If you're ready to understand the connections that perhaps no one has ever explained to you like this, then keep watching, because knowledge is the first and most important step forwards to change. Before we get to the neck, we need to understand a fundamental principle. The body is a single unit. Modern biomechanics calls this a kinetic chain. This means everything is connected via muscles, ligaments, and especially fascia, our network of connective tissue. A problem in one area will inevitably have an effect somewhere else. Imagine your body is a house. If the foundation is crooked, cracks will appear in the walls, right up to the roof. A misalignment in your feet, for example, flat feet, changes the alignment of your entire leg. Your knee rotates slightly, your hip tilts. To keep your gaze level, your spine has to compensate. And what does most of the compensatory work? Your cervical spine and your neck muscles. They are under constant stress, just because the foundation isn't right. A pelvic tilt or a locked up hip forces the spine into a slight sideways curve. Here too, your neck has to counteract this to keep your head straight. This principle is crucial because the problems we're discussing today also arises from chronic overload, stemming from a central dysfunction. Now let's zoom in on the area where most of our problems converge, the superior thoracic aperture, also known as the thoracic outlet. It's located here on both sides. Imagine this area as one of the busiest and narrowest mountain passes in a major city. This pass is formed by hard bone, your first rib below, your collarbone at the front, and your first thoracic vertebra at the back. Through this tiny narrow opening, the most important supply lines for your entire arm must travel. The brachial plexus, this is essentially the main fuse box of your arm, a massive network of nerves coming from your cervical spine that controls every muscle and sensation right down to your fingertips. The subclavian artery and vein, the main artery and vein that supply your arm with blood and transport it back, also flows through this area, and it's at the exact bottleneck that our main protagonists attach, the scalene muscles. These are three pairs of muscles that run from the sides of your cervical vertebra down to your first and second ribs, like the cables on a suspension bridge. Their primary job is to lift these ribs during inhalation. They are our strongest accessory breathing muscle. And that word accessory is the key to this entire drama. What causes the system to go wrong? The answer is almost always chronic stress. Our autonomic nervous system has two main modes: the parasympathetic, our break, our rest, digestion, and regeneration, and the sympathetic, our accelerator for performance and the fight or flight response. When we are under constant stress, whether from work, worry, or emotional burdens, our accelerator gets stuck. The sympathetic nervous system is permanently active. The body constantly releases stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. This leads to an increased baseline tension in all our muscles. The body is always ready for a fight that never comes. And in this state of alarm, a deeply rooted evolutionary protective reflex kicks in. We raise our shoulders and tense our neck to protect our most vulnerable spot, our throat. This permanent state of alarm leads to the most damaging change of all, our breathing pattern. It collapses. Healthy, relaxed breathing is driven by the diaphragm. This large, dome-shaped muscle deep in our abdomen moves down like an ocean wave, massaging our organs and ensuring deep, efficient breaths. Our shoulders and neck remain completely relaxed. Under stress, the opposite happens. We switch to shallow chest or panic breathing. And now, with every single one of your roughly 20,000 breaths per day, your accessory breathing muscles, the scalenes, have to do all the heavy lifting. They lift and lower your ribcage 20,000 times a day. They are being constantly overworked. The physiological consequences are inevitable. First, hypertrophy. The muscles get thicker and larger. They also harden. They lose their subtleness and become hard and stringy. Then they also shorten. The chronic tension leads to a shortening of the muscle fibers. And then also trigger points. They are painful knots that form and refer pain to other regions as well. These altered muscles now begin to progressively narrow our anatomical mountain pass, the thoracic outlet, the suspension bridge, as we aforementioned. Pull the first rib upwards, reducing the space for nerves and vessels. The stage for the cascade of symptoms is now set. Neck tension and tension headaches. This is the most obvious consequence. The pain arises locally from the overworked muscles themselves, like a constant muscle ache. Furthermore, the trigger points in the scalenes and the trapezius muscle here refer pain upwards along the side of the neck, behind the ear and into the temples. This is the classic cervicogenic headache, a headache that originates in the neck. Then we've got numbness and tingling in the fingers. Here, things become purely mechanical. The thickened scalenes and the elevated first rib compress the structures in the bottleneck here. If the brachial plexus is compressed, you experience neurological symptoms. That can be tingling, numbness, pins and needles, a burning sensation, or weakness in your arm and fingers. If the artery is compressed, you experience vascular symptoms. That can be cold, pale hand, a weak pulse on your wrist, a feeling that your arm falls asleep quickly when you're working overhead. Now let's get to your teeth and jaw pain. The tension climbs up the fascial chain, directly from the neck to the jaw. A tense neck activates the chewing muscle. But there is a deeper layer here, described by body psychotherapy. That's bioenergetics by Alexander Lowen. We form a muscular armor that suppresses emotions. A tense jaw and neck serve to hold back anger and screaming or crying. Teeth grinding is the nightly discharge of the stored emotional energy. And shallow breathing is the very tool that allows us to maintain this armor. And now let's get to tinnitus and dizziness, the multifactorial consequence. These symptoms are often the most alarming. They arise from an interplay of 4 factors. The first one is a mechanical one. The tension in the deep neck muscles, especially at the base of the skull here, is transferred to the membranes surrounding the brain and to the cranial bones themselves. It exerts pull and pressure on the temporal bone here, the bone that houses the highly sensitive hearing and balance organs. This mechanical irritation can lead to a malfunction, tinnitus and dizziness. Now let's get to the second factor, vascular, so the blood flow. The same tense muscles can compress the vertebral artery, which travels up through the cervical vertebra to the brain. Even a slight reduction in blood supply to the brainstem and cerebellum, our main processing centers for balance and hearing, can trigger these symptoms. Then we've got the third factor, neurological. There is a direct proven neural highway between the trigeminal nerve, responsible for the jaw, and the auditory nuclei in the brainstem. An overstimulated jaw nerve from teeth grinding can literally send faulty signals to the hearing system. This creates a somatic tinnitus, a sound that you can change by moving your jaw or stretching your neck. Then we've got the fourth one, systemic. Tinnitus and dizziness can also be direct manifestations of a nervous system in a state of chronic alarm. They are like an internal alarm siren or the physical sensation of losing the ground from your feet, which mirrors the internal state of danger and uncertainty. Through the ages, all of this modern scientific insight is mirrored in ancient wisdom traditions. The traditional Chinese medicine describes a liver qi stagnation from suppressed frustration, which blocks the flow in the gallbladder meridian. This meridian runs along the exact zones that we described: pain, shoulders, neck, jaw, and temples. Then Ayurveda explains as a massive aggravation of the Vata dosha. Vata is the principle of movement, wind, dryness, cold, and the nervous system. The symptoms are classic Vata: dry, painful, stiffness, nervous tingling, ringing of the wind in the ear, and the feeling of instability, the dizziness. Furthermore, poor digestion can lead to metabolic waste, which deposits in the tissues, making them heavy and painful. In Buddhism offers a mental perspective. It teaches the distinction between pure pain, that's the first arrow, and the mental suffering we add through fear and resistance. This is the second arrow. The suffering massively amplifies the pain. Now let's get to the power of conscious breathing. After this long and deep analysis, the path out of this vicious cycle is as logical as it is profound. It doesn't lie in treating the individual symptoms, but in reversing the causal chain at this root. The key is the conscious restoration of functional, calm, diaphragmatic breathing, and that through the nose. This is not just a relaxation exercise, it is a deep intervention on 4 levels. First, biomechanical. You take the load off your neck and shoulders. You give them a break 20,000 times a day. This allows them to recover, soften, and reduce the pressure on your nervous system and blood vessels. Then we've also got biochemical. Chronic stress often leads to hidden hyperventilation. We breathe too much air, but also incorrectly. In doing so, we breathe off too much CO2. Contrary to popular belief, CO2 isn't just a waste product. We need a certain level of CO2 in our blood for oxygen to be released effectively from our red blood cells into our tissues. Calm nasal breathing normalizes your CO2 levels, improves oxygenation in your brain and muscles, and relaxes your blood vessels. Then third, neurological. A slow, gentle exhalation is the most powerful stimulus we have to activate the vagus nerve, the main nerve of our internal brake. You actively signal to your nervous system, the danger has passed, you can relax. You are switching from the sympathetic to the regenerative parasympathetic state. Then psychological. You use your breath to gently melt the emotional muscular armor. Instead of suppressing feelings with shallow breathing, you create a space with a deep breath to feel them safely and let them go. The journey we've taken today shows this. Your symptoms are not your enemies. They are the intelligent language of your body telling you a story about stress, posture, and above all, a lost connection to our most fundamental process, breathing. By learning to breathe correctly again, you take the wheel back into your own hands. You begin to unravel the entire chain from the root up. That is the path. If you are ready to walk it and want to learn the practical exercises to do so, then please sign up to this breathing course right now. And breathe consciously.